bad in a film like Rocky IV to the leading hero in Masters of the Universe in such a quick span of time. What's that feeling like going to like the top so quickly?
It was difficult for me because, you know, in Rocky IV I had Stallone as my mentor, and he was a good director. He had a great script and MGM behind us. So it felt kind of secure, and I played a character who was a Soviet fighter, so I could study how the, you know, Russian cadets kept their head high. They speak with a Russian accent. You know, I could design this character, but now suddenly I was playing this American hero, and he was kind of a fictitious character. And, you know, canon wasn't MGM, and the script was a little weak. So I was excited, but I was also, I was nervous about it. And the fact that also I was playing a good guy, and I played a bad guy last time. So I was wondering if people were gonna, if they would like me, you know. Being 28-year-old Swedish kid, so it was a tough shoot, you know, especially with Canon going through some financial difficulties and all of that. But you know, but I have some fun memories from the shoot. Really, it was a lot of fun. Really, it was a challenge.
Were you aware of the iconic toy line before taking the picture, or was that something that was like, this is the hero that you'll be playing? Or you're like, I know He-Man.
Yeah, I think everybody had heard of He-Man in those days. I'd seen the cartoon a little bit. I'd seen some of the toys. I wasn't really an expert on it, but when I was chosen for to star in the movie, I remember my first appearance was at Macy's Day Parade, 1986, I think it was, in New York, and I was on the float, you know, with He-Man and Beastman and all of those guys, and we ended up at Radio City Music Hall, which is a theater about 10 times this size. And I ended up on stage, and there were all these little kids in there with little swords screaming, I have the power, you know, by them. And that's when I realized, you know, that it was a big deal. And there's a lot of pressure on this young actor who just kind of found fame only like less than a year before.
And as acting dialogue goes, I have the power has to be one of the most pleasurable things to be able to say. Guesstimation, how many times have you said it in your illustrious career?
I can't. It comes second after I must break you. I have the power, and also if he dies, he dies. I had an LAPD car, you know, we were passing them on Santa Monica, and the guy of the loudhailer went, if he dies, he dies. Anyway, also a good journey. That's the one from the UK. They seem to like the film in England quite a bit.
Well, when you started the picture, you have to now embody the most powerful man in the universe. What is that preparation like? Getting into that day-to-day, I need to be at the top of my game. How do you prepare for that?
Well, you know, a lot of it was preparation, like in Rocky IV. A lot of it was physical training with the sword fighting, and doing a lot of strength training to get more muscular. Because in Rocky IV, I played a fighter, so I was muscular, but I was quite ripped. You know, I was thinner because we did a lot of boxing, a couple of hours every day. But in Masters, I wanted to be a bit bigger, a little more like Conan, where I'd seen that picture with Arnold, a friend of mine. So that was one preparation, and then, you know, the character, like I said, it was kind of difficult for me at the time, because even now it would be a bit of a challenge. You're trying to figure out who is this guy and how do you make him a human being, you know. I think, if I recall, I was working on the script and I was trying to find the emotional sort of center of the guy, what he cared about and what made him tick and what made him upset and emotional, and what the stakes were, you know. So I think apart from putting on that costume, which is about the size of a stamp, a little bit bigger, especially in the lower region. Apart from putting that on, and we shot, I think, 59 nights in a row in Whittier, which was I think it was a all-time record of night shoots until Scorsese did After Hours. We had like 62 nights in a row. So it was a tough shoot physically for me, and, you know, like I said, emotionally as well, because I had that pressure of, you know, are people going to like me? Is this film going to be as good as Rocky IV, which had made, you know, 150 million or something in those days?
Well, when I knew I was going to be speaking with you tonight, I knew I'd be speaking to a He-Man, so I wanted to try and rep the cartoon and the toy series. So I went with a Prince Adam, who didn't make the film necessarily. So I'm interested to know how you and the filmmakers thought about the filmmaking process in regards to the movie. Were you thinking of like it's an adaptation of the cartoon? Is it an adaptation of the toys? Or were you looking for something more in between?
Well, I was young and I wasn't really privy to the, setting the theme of this project. But I think, from what I remember speaking to Gary Goddard, the director, it was more of kind of an epic adventure, like the Iliad or Star Wars, kind of in that vein, where it's it's kind of a classic hero's journey. You leave a place, your home, to find the boon, to sort of fight the bad guys and bring something back to your country, to Eternia in this place, in this time. So I think when I looked at it, I was trying to look at it in those terms. I didn't really. The cartoon was little pieces, and the toys. I hadn't. Well, I was too old to play with them, so even though I was only 28. But anyway, no, I think it was more of a kind of an action adventure, epic drama. I think that's how we looked at it.
I don't think you're ever too old to play with those toys.
You're right. I should have said that.
Now let's talk about the final battle between you and Skeletor. Now there were stories that it had to be adjusted, that there was an original vision for the final battle, and that there had to be some changes. What can you enlighten us about what happened there?
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to say, like Frank Lagello plays Skeletor. I was really looking up to him. I remember that as a young actor, and I knew he'd been in Broadway plays and he'd been nominated for an Academy Award and all of that. And it was funny because I was kind of in awe of him as an actor, and I was studying him. His intensity, he was very intense as his character, as we'll see. But then physically, I had to fight him, and his double. A lot of stuff was with his double, but I remember I felt a little sorry for him because I thought, this guy's really old, he's like, I don't know if he's going to make it through this. And when I checked yesterday on his age, when we shot, he was like 47 years old, so 15 years younger than me. So it just shows you how your perception changes over the years. But I think we did have a more elaborate fight scene planned. But towards the end of the film, I think they lost shooting days because Canon was kind of running out of funds, I believe. So I think that's what happened. We had to adjust a little bit and kind of truncate some of the fighting. But I think it still came across pretty well, from what I remember.
I think it did too. Now, thank you so much for joining us, and let me wish you right now a happy 40th birthday as He-Man. It's been an absolute pleasure, and now I believe we're going to get ready to see the film. For all you Motu fans out there, it is my honor and my pleasure that I have the power to introduce the 1987 action-adventure film, Masters of the Universe, with our very own Dolph Lundgren here. It's an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, everybody. Nice to be here. Great pleasure.